She is founder of 17 Muscles and owner of Mac Gel Fast. She's Xander? Apologize. She has expertise in strategy, operations, and HR. Please help me welcome Rebecca.
Well, it's good evening. I am Rebecca Short, and I'm really pleased to be here tonight. And Nina and I had quite the trip. We started off at 3:30 from the city of Kitchener at the tannery, and we got to know each other really well on the 401 before we got past the huge accident. As I said, I'm really pleased to share some observations from over 30 years in business and entrepreneurship. This is just going to be very easygoing from my experience. So I'd like to give you some background to set the stage for my remarks about hiring and building teams. I started my life and my current career in Texas. I was born in San Antonio and educated there. But I'm a proud permanent resident of Canada of many years standing. Through the accident of marriage, opportunity, interest, and serendipity, I've lived and worked in the UK, living in rural rather than urban setting, teaching and doing market research projects. In Sierra Leone in West Africa in my mid-20s, long before the Civil War in that sad but beautiful country, writing, radio scripting, teaching African university students. In Houston, Texas, working for Conoco Chemicals as a researcher, getting involved with technology, doing some really early online database searches of chemical industry databases, doing primary and secondary market research in the US, Europe, and Canada, forecasting upstream and downstream products for high-density polyethylene, PVC, and other thermoplastics, and presenting to industry groups and Conoco's clients in the US and Canada. In Kitchener, Ontario, I worked for a tire company, Uniroyal, which became Uniroyal Goodrich, as a manager of market research, and then marketing manager of the Uniroyal brand in Canada. At this time in Kitchener, my husband and I started two businesses. An ad agency, which is now Mocktail Foss Sander, and it was MFX Partners, which is focused on business-to-business advertising and communications and planning, at least in the early days. It has evolved over the years and continues to evolve today, so that 28 years later, we're doing a lot of things that we never thought we would be doing, and adding people we never thought we would add to our company. The second company we founded in those early days was a typesetting business, which all of you probably don't know anything about. The typesetting business, we sold that typesetting business after a few years when we predicted that computers were going to be doing the typesetting work that ad agencies would require in the future. And we actually have a really early Apple computer from that early era, the Macintosh 512K. You probably saw it in photo of Steve Jobs, if you sort of saw his obituary in the New York Times, at a 1985 trade show. It had 512K memory, and it was the newest, best piece of technology at the time. Along the way, I had my own consulting business for a year doing marketing and market research projects until I was recruited by a client. In Waterloo, I worked for BF Goodrich as the manager of PVC compounds for all products in all markets in Canada. I had 7 counterparts in the US because, as you know, the Canadian market, even though it's 10–15% of the US market, demands 100% of all the product offerings. And so we had products that went all across all categories. In Cleveland, Ohio, I was promoted to the North American Business Manager of Automotive Plastics, heading up a team of 25 cross-disciplinary professionals working with automotive OEMs and Tier 1 suppliers. And also in Cleveland, I was a marketing manager for new and emerging markets and new products, working with the technical OEM sales force, also at BF Goodrich. So a lot of my early career was spent with large Fortune 500 companies with vast resources, working either on my own to create new information and strategies, or working with groups and or large teams with a common goal, and leading the strategy of those teams. The work was complex, it was technical, it was challenging. I learned a lot of new things and met a lot of new people. and I really enjoyed it. But it got even more challenging when we started up more companies and had to start building teams and building companies from scratch. We started a company in the US outside Manhattan and in Danbury, Connecticut that focused on outdoor advertising. Despite having the presence of the 1996 Atlanta Olympics as an official supplier, it lasted 3 years. Back in Canada, I started working with artists as an artist agent because I'm an avid supporter of the arts and culture and community initiatives. Before coming to work full-time at MFX Partners in 2002. In 2003, with my husband and a friend, I started another company named Core Culture that focused on trying to improve internal company cultures and help workforces become more aligned and out of their silos and more sort of working together. But we began with what our partner knew best, which was how to do health and safety programs for large retailers in the US. In 2007 and 2008, with this company, we developed some learning and retention software for one of our clients, for which we saw great customer ROI and value. So we really had 3 companies that we were managing from 2002. MFX Partners, which became Mocktail Fossander, growing and evolving, getting into business-to-business branding, and getting into more strategic planning for business-to-business companies so that they could grow their businesses. And then following that through with all of the planning and the strategic communications and everything that follows with it, through graphic design and through to actually getting the work done. And we called ourselves partners because we were partners with both our customers and with a number of different suppliers that we brought together. So we would bring together teams, particularly for a particular job. And we were partners with our customers because we had a lot of customers that we've had for over 25 years. The second company we were managing at the time was Core Culture, which was growing and evolving around internal communications. And then we have this software initiative, which was really an outlier that we thought was highly valuable, and we felt to exploit the power and to make it grow. After a year or two of trying to grow the software business while keeping MFX Partners and Core Culture going, we decided to approach the Startup Accelerator Center in Waterloo to see if this was a place where we could take our software. We had the idea that we needed to spin it off into its own software company and look for a completely different team. As I said, we were not software engineers, but we knew we had something really valuable. In early 2010, we were accepted into the Accelerator Center, and we began the work of dealing with shareholder issues, spinning off the company while keeping sales and marketing going, and creating communicating the vision for the company in order to find the team that would take the software company to its next level. So we were managing teams already in both the companies, and we were already envisioning what we needed for that software company because we knew that it wasn't what we already had, and we knew that we didn't have the expertise to actually take it where it needed to go. And I think that's a really important thing to note, and I think Helen sort of mentioned it, to know what you know and what you don't know, and what you're good at and what you're not good at, and just keep those in front of you. So we started a 2-year transition, continuing to grow sales and contracts and having pilot projects with new customers, signing up new customers for the software in Canada and the US. And in late 2010, we began discussions with potential CEOs for 17 Muscles, which is what this company became. In early 2011, the software company was spun off as 17 Muscles. My husband and I exited Core Culture in order to concentrate on Mocktail Fossander, which we rebranded in MFX Partners, and 17 Muscles. At this time, we confirmed our CEO. We'd known her for a number of months, and finally we agreed that she was the person for us. After she sold her previous company to Google, Carol Lehman, who is the CEO of 17 Muscles, came to us in the summer of 2011. And I'm happy to say that on March the 2nd, 2012, 17 Muscles changed its name to Axonify and closed on a significant first round of funding led by Bridgeville Partners out of Menlo Park, California, and the Investment Accelerator Fund in Toronto. The Axonify team built from 3 to 14 in a matter of weeks and is scheduled to grow to 20 by the end of 2012. So I have to say that my interest in business over all the time that I've been doing all of these things has been in equal measure the content of the work and the people I was in business with and the people I was in business for. But if anything, I believe I've learned more from the people side of my business experiences. The people you work with, the people who are your customers, the people who like what you do, the people who don't. Team members you can count on without fail, the ones who either don't get it or don't share your vision or have a vision of their own that gets in the way of your vision and ultimately let you down. In the end, it's always about people. As a person who's always been interested in people and in their stories and in the future, I have a great interest in listening to people, in trying to see what's happening in the world now, trying to fathom what could happen from what I'm seeing, trying to be at the interesting edge of what is new and valuable, and always looking for something new and better. So in thinking about the topic of tonight's session, how do you create a brand that attracts the talent you need? How do you identify the real talent you need? How do you win the war for talent? And what do you do with the talent when you actually have it in your shop? I thought these are really good questions. It caused me to think of advice that I would give you as entrepreneurs facing many day-to-day challenges as you build your businesses and your teams. So I wanted to focus on the people side of things. I won't talk about your business plans or your work plans because they're all different depending on your organization and what your product is and what you're trying to do. But to focus on the people side of things, I've broken up my comments into 3 sections. The first is self-knowledge, and I have to tell you that Helen and I didn't consult on any of this, but it's really interesting because I was nodding my head when she was talking. The first one is self-knowledge, the second one is about hiring a team, and the third is about managing a team. This is what has been most important for us and what we still keep in mind as we evolve our business, hire new teams, look for the next new products and services in the service business, and look to populate our team with the people who will help to deliver those new products and services. So we are always evolving. That's just the nature of any business. So first, self-examination and knowledge. Number 1, know who you are and know your own talents first. 2, acknowledge what you're good at and not good at. Don't spend a lot of your time on what you're not good at. Find people who are good at that and let them do it. 3, work to clearly articulate the vision and promise of your company. What is your brand? You can't start a business and you can't attract people to your business unless you do that thinking first. You need to know. You may change it over time, but you need to know what it is first. So you need to do that hard work first. What is your unique point of differentiation? Why you? What's the essence of what the business is that you are trying to create? What's it for? What benefit will it bring to your ultimate customers? You need to have that sort of in your bones from the very beginning. Otherwise, you can't tell anybody else what it is, what the business is about. 4, what does success look like for your company? And you can imagine that. You have to be able to say, this is what success looks like for me. This is how I know. This is when I reach this point, then I know we will be successful in the business that we're trying to create. What skills do you need in total to make the success happen? You really need to think about that. Number 5, which is very important for small business, what is the culture you are trying to create within your organization? The culture of an organization is not something that's dictated from on high. It is something that is palpable. It's something that is unstated, unsaid, but as soon as you walk into a company, as soon as you walk into a place of business, you know it. And employees will know whether, or potential employees will know it, no matter how hard you try and hide it. So it will either be attractive to them, or it will not. It will be, there'll be all kinds of excuses why they won't come to you, but the real reason is they felt the culture, and the culture's not right. And corporate culture is one of the most important things, especially in small organizations and organizations that are set to grow. Organizations that you want to grow without, in a positive, straightforward fashion, in a happy fashion. It's really important to know what your culture is. And if it's not right, to just admit it and then say, what is the culture you want to have? And to also fully articulate that to anybody who comes. Because we've done this with employees. We said, here's what we're creating here within this company. And is that something that you feel that you can be a part of? And people will be really honest with you, and they'll say, yes or no. Unless they're absolutely desperate for a job. Nobody wants to work in a company where they're not going to be happy, where they're not going to feel like they actually fit and belong. You're going to ask yourself the question, what kind of energy do you want to have live within your company for the tough tasks ahead? 7, who do you imagine working happily alongside over long days and long nights? Because you probably, if you ask yourself the question, you'd have the answer. And you need to have that answer, and you need to thought that out beforehand. And 8, what's the most important thing you need done first, and who you need to do it? I think once that's all done, then you're now ready to look at hiring people. So once you know these, and it's good to just write them down, because when you write them down, they're there, and sometimes it's hard. But at least you got something. You got something that you can go back to and say, is this really right? You can change it, but you really should ask all those questions and work through that. If that's something that you need help with, there are people who do this sort of work as well. And not to put a plug in, but we do that sort of work too, because we do branding. Some considerations then in looking at hiring the team. And obviously there are lots of considerations. These are the ones that I thought of, that came readily to mind, that we've used. So first of all, tell your story, sell your vision for your company. Any hiring involves convincing future talent that you are the company they've been looking for, and you want to be able to say why. Why would they want to come here? So you need to tell your story. 2, establish strong relationships with educational leaders and or industry insiders in the disciplines you're regularly hiring in. 3, share your work philosophy and your vision with as many people as you can in the entrepreneurial and business community so they know who you are and what you are looking to build. 4, we've used this a lot, look to hire people who are smarter than you are. I've often said to my husband, if I had to be the smartest person in the company, then I know that the company is limited. I want to learn from people who are smarter than me. 5, look to hire people who have different experience than you do. 6, don't hire yourself. Hire a diverse workforce in terms of experience and skills. They can be complementary, just not the same as you. This way, you're going to learn something new. 7, when hiring, remember the culture of the company you're trying to create. Don't hire a wrong fit, even if he or she has the best or most perfect skills. A wrong cultural fit can cause a lot of problems in a small company and cost time and expense. You don't want to spend time to do something twice. And remember, you have work to do to go forward, to build your company. 8, sometimes hire great people, even though they aren't exactly bringing the skills you're seeking. If you think you can rejig around their skills and their talent, and if they fit your culture. It's a kind of like an opportunity hire. And I know if you hired people, you've come across people sometimes that you never intended to hire, you never think you would hire, but you couldn't help yourself because this was such a great person and maybe looking out forward, as you said, for the future, looking out to like even not what you're hiring for now, but what you know you're going to be facing, and looking to add to the whole skills. Finally, once you have hired the team, then how do you manage them? We've always tried to work with people's strengths, to work collectively with the team to manage and compensate for personal weaknesses. Ideally, you have a team where skills are rounded out for the greater whole. So, you know, obviously, nobody's going to completely fill in and be perfect in that particular area, but somebody else can fill in there, and that person can fill in. And gradually, you've got everything that you need in terms of your whole team. Because you don't know the full skills of people you're going to come across. And you sometimes, well, you often need to get going. You need to get going. You can't kind of sit around and wait for the exact right person because you don't know if that person's going to show up. So if you hire somebody that's not quite right on this, and then you think, okay, well, I still got that gap there, then you're going to look for somebody with that, whatever's in that gap. Give people a sense of empowerment. Give them responsibility for their work so they have a sense of pride. Be inclusive with the team. Be empathetic with employees and appreciate the personal life challenges. Be supportive of employees when things go wrong. If they work with you to make them right, you know you can count on them next time. 6, offer an appealing environment and working conditions along with special events during working hours. We do. It doesn't need to be disruptive. It can be part, in fact, of building your culture, and it's a really good way of building your culture. At Mocktail Fazenda, for example, we stand up. So every day at 9:30, we all stand up and we spend about 10 minutes where you have about a minute, and you just talk about one thing that struck you since yesterday, one thing you've learned, one thing you've read, something that's interesting, something that's fun, whatever it is. And you learn, and as a group, you learn something, and you learn to get to know people because, you know, hey, I didn't know you were interested in that. That sort of thing. We do potluck lunches, we do build a soup lunch, salad Wednesdays. Last week, we had spicy Mexican food to stave off the flu. That was our thing. And usually we do like 6 afternoons at least dedicated to employee group events. So we might go bowling, we might go golfing, we might go go-karting, go to movies or something like that, which is just about being together. 7, always consider and be prepared to embrace newer and more effective ways of approaching the way you do business. Smart people are always attracted by the idea that they can be on the leading edge of new innovations. So really look for that creativity and movement and new ideas around what it is you're doing. Don't be tied to exactly what you're doing in the way that you're doing it, but do listen, and you might hear something that will improve. Try things, and you can try and fail. That's, you know, even a failure is good. A failure is really good, actually, because that shows you what didn't work, and then it doesn't make you scared to try things. Because if it fails, you know, it just failed. But you might get something that has worked better than you thought of. 8, begin to develop a history of being a steady, reliable employer in a market that may not be. I think this is really important to employees, even though I know that employees are looking to grow and move and all the rest of it. Nobody likes living or working in a chaotic company or a company without some stability. I'd like to close with one overarching principle that I've always lived by, and my husband has lived by, and that is set the standards by your own example. Be what you want to see in others. So, thank you.
So if I understood you well, you had over 30 years of experience with the corporate and or entrepreneurial world. Right. And you did touch on the point that, on the culture point. And you did mention that, you know, it's good to go out with your employees or for a movie or for golf or whatever. What are some of the key points that would define culture attractive to employees, according to your experience or in your
An attractive culture
yeah.
people are interested in? I think people,
You're being paid.
Sorry. Okay. So I think people are interested in a culture that is exciting, in a culture that isn't stagnant, in a culture that allows for differences of opinion and for different types of people, allows for the devil's advocate, the person who disagrees, and then treats that with respect. I think people enjoy working in an environment that is that can change and that can adapt in looking at what's going on outside and being sure that you're sort of measuring up to the excitement that your employees see out in the world. So while you don't need to, I think, be always changing, always exciting, I think you need to be open. And I think that employees have to feel that they have the ability to contribute and the ability to be heard in the company. But going back to Helen's point, I think it's really important that that happen, but at the same time, you need to be sure about where you want the company to go, and you need to be able to inspire people to want to go there with you. And how you get there and how you actually do things and can be done differently, but you have to have a vision for your company and where it's going. So I think employees react well to a vision, looking at building something, and being part of that and being an important part of it.
Thank you.
I have a rather long question. I mean, there's basically two parts to it. Based on your experience, what is your opinion about the most critical factor in building a great team? And the second part of my question is about what are some of the pitfalls you can avoid? I mean, telltale signs, in the beginning, so that you don't get into more complex things down the line.
Sorry, could you just repeat the first part for me?
So the first part of my question was, based on your experience, what is your opinion about what is the most critical factor in building a great team? And the second part of the question is, what are the pitfalls to avoid or the early red flags building a great team?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the most important critical factors in building a great team is to be able to have a group of individuals that actually knit and work together towards a common goal. I think you have to have that forward movement, that idea that we're all moving somewhere and we're moving there together, and a commitment to it as well. I think that early on, if you find that someone is really not contributing, and not only not contributing, but sort of pulling back and pulling the team back, then you need to deal with it. And we've had situations like that, and you need to realize that one person can actually spoil the work of many people. And if that starts to happen, you basically will never have a great team, because they're not going to trust one another, and they're going to hold back. Sometimes people don't sort of say things because what's the point? This isn't going anywhere. So I think you need to really worry about a team that doesn't seem to be knit and doesn't seem to be going somewhere. And sometimes teams also sort of go off on a tangent, and we've done this where we let them go off on a tangent, but then on better reflection said, okay, let's come back though. That's not taking us where we want to go. Here's where we're going to go. So you can't just let a team just do what it wants to do. I don't mean by building a great team where you listen to people and that kind of thing, that you let people decide what needs to get done. but you let people talk about how you could do what you want to get done. And it's a constant sort of checking and monitoring and making sure that you go back and you articulate again the vision that you have, and make sure that everybody's on board with that, and make sure if you have dissenters that you listen to them, but it's got to be in a positive fashion. If it starts to go off track, if one person is taking down the team, if the team's becoming ineffective, then you really need to deal with that, because that's not a great team. And we've had both. We've had teams that have like just gone gangbusters, and it's been a joy to watch, and you hardly needed to sort of step in that. And then we've had teams that, for some reason, started not to work that well, and you really have to just intervene and make sure that you talk to the person who, if it's one person who's bringing down the whole team, and if need be, you need to get rid of that person so that the team can survive. So you can't be so kind to the person that's bringing down the team that the whole team suffers, the whole team is in jeopardy. So you've just got to always think, is this working? Are people working? Are they fulfilling what I want them to do in terms of food? That's where we want to go. And it's a constant thing. You're constant, it's people. You're involved with people. And, people are interesting. Thank you.